If you are having trouble with high-level players absolutely destroying you, I'm here to help. In this video, I'll be going over 5 concepts that are super important to understand if you even want to challenge a high-level player in a good team. So the first thing that I'll mention is really important. If you are fighting good players, assume that they will hit every shot on you or use their melee weapon in the most optimal way possible. Even if that's not the case, just assume that it is. If you play a lot of casual modes, you are probably used to people missing or being suboptimal with their weapons, which can reinforce bad habits for you. But this becomes increasingly less common when you go up against good players. When you get into an engagement, imagine that the enemy is able to hit basically every shot, and then ask yourself, is this a good fight for me to take? Asking this question usually helps you analyze your own gameplay and leads to further questions. Are my teammates with me to trade me or res me if I die? Do I have positional advantage? Do I have a backup plan? These questions are especially important if you play light because it's way easier to get themed by a good player as this class, but it's even a good habit to have if you play medium or heavy. So if you are up against a good player, just start assuming that they will hit every shot. Now to build off this concept, if the enemy player will hit every shot against me, is there anything at all that I can even do at this point? And the answer is yes. Obviously, you could try to work on your aim, but besides this, making use of my second tip, playing around height and cover whenever you can, is very important. I know this is pretty basic info, but the sheer amount of players I see just ignore cover and then promptly die made it clear to me that even though this is obvious information, it's a fundamental that clearly needs to get worked on by a larger percentage of the player base. Let me break down the different types of cover here for you and how they specifically help to make this a little bit easier to understand. So in the finals, there is full cover, half cover, high ground, covered low ground, and obscured vision. Full cover is when you have a full wall that covers your entire character model, which requires you to move around it to engage an enemy. This is best used for breaking line of sight from an enemy to heal or to avoid taking damage in the first place, which is just as important, and is more useful in close ranges where avoiding shotguns and kiting heavies can be more valuable. If you run a shotgun, you can sometimes get jump shots over some pieces of full cover, and as a melee user, this is the most important piece of cover for you to play around. Next up is half cover, which comprises of anything that covers part of your character model. Half cover could vary as much as simply being a small log that you have to crouch behind to get value, or a large box that covers most but not all of your player model. But just to emphasize, the most important thing with this piece of cover is that it covers some but not all of your model. This is most valuable in mid to long range engagements. Take a look at this. When I'm at a long engagement range, this is what an enemy player model will look like. When I fire at them, because their model is so much smaller on my screen, I'm going to get a lot more center mass and leg shots, which means if we use cover to obscure those areas of the model, it becomes really hard to hit those shots. Whereas over from this side of the cover, it's really easy to hit this enemy. Now, high ground is basically a mix of full cover and half cover depending on your perspective. And this is why high ground is so valuable. The only weakness of high ground is that sometimes it's hard to hear people, so if a team surprises you with a jump pad RPG combo, it can really make this strategy fall apart. So if you are holding high ground, make sure that you are very aware of your surroundings. Low ground cover isn't optimal, but in certain scenarios, you can make a pseudo half cover angle like this. Now, you are still at a disadvantage fighting anyone on height like this, but it's better than nothing. And finally, obscured vision can be anything from trees to smoke. Basically anything you can shoot through but blocks vision. If you didn't know, you can track some people through trees by following their health bar, or if you ping them, sometimes the ping also tracks through trees. Play this right and you should be able to get good damage on enemies without them even being able to see you. And you can use smokes and thermal vision to get a similar effect if you're on light. Something else that is super important that any good player will use to their advantage is to beat you with rotates and good macro strategy. Because good players hold good cover and good possessions around the map, getting good at this third tip, which is learning good places to rotate from, is really important in this game. Now, instead of just listing off a bunch of places that may or may not be good to rotate from, I'm going to teach you how to figure this out for yourself, and you only need to ask these 4 questions. Does it give me places to take cover? Does it overexpose me to many sight lines? Is it good with my specific weapon and gadgets? And how fast is the rotate? Most good players will either take pathways that are very safe or ones that allow you to push up very quickly on the enemy, so keep this in mind if you're having trouble pushing an objective. Now for the fourth tip, I'm going to explain what good macro strategy is, but I'm going to try and keep this brief as I'm going to be making another video with advanced topics that will dive into this stuff a bit more. But in general, there is something that is really important for you to understand, and that is pacing. Pacing is basically the general rate that cash outs are being started at during the game. If you have good pacing, that means that your cash out will finish before the other one, usually by a significant margin, while bad pacing is the opposite. You want to try and aim for good pacing or equal pacing as often as possible, and things like jump pads, zip lines, and gateways all help with this. If you have good pacing, this usually means that you have time to go and third party the second cash out and possibly get a bunch of easy money. Now, if you have bad pacing, you should fully expect to be third-partied by another team. So at this point, you should try and pull back from fighting as much as possible and play for stall instead. During a third party, your sole goal should be to play for time and secure your cash outs. So using stall utility like DMAT or C4 is super important in these situations. As a general rule, while being third-partied, you want the other two teams to fight while you simply defend. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about, for this video at least, is optimal utility usage and breaking bad gadget habits. Having good gadget usage is super important, but it's easily most important on the heavy class, so I'm going to be using a lot of examples from here. But these concepts are applicable to everyone. So I usually see players do these two things really often, even high-level players at times, and that is either waste utility or hoard it. I'm going to use Dome Shield as my first example here. Dome Shield is one of the most important gadgets in the game at high level play, and good dome usage can make or break a fight for your team. But so often I see heavies throw their dome either at the first sight of an enemy or the second they take the tiniest bit of damage, and this can be a bit of a waste at times. And on the flip side, I see some other heavies pop a dome just to res someone, which is also often a waste when they could have used the dome to keep that teammate from dying in the first place. This is an example of hoarding utility. Dome is a gadget that is used to take space and give your team effectively extra health. So good dome usage could be to save a teammate from dying, to help your team explode onto a site, or dropping one at low health to ego challenge a light chasing you and get a kill. These are examples of good gadget usage. Two other gadgets I see being wasted a lot are RPG and defib. Many heavies RPG at the first sight of an enemy when it should be used to damage groups of players or hit people behind cover. And don't even get me started on the amount of ways people waste defib. I have a whole section in my medium guide discussing just that. But the point of all of this is to make you ask yourself, am I a utility waster or a utility hoarder? And could better utility usage help me win my games more often? Seriously, record a full game of yourself and then watch your gadget usage and ask, did that help me win the fight? Was there a better time that I could have used this? And you will usually find something that you can improve. Even I do this, and it helps immensely. If these tips help you at all, leaving a like is appreciated, and subscribe to the channel as I'll be doing more of these sorts of breakdowns to help you improve at the game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.